After 2 years, over 250,000 words, and countless cups of tea, my first book, The Stirring Season, A Novel in Stories, is finally finished. With publication on the horizon, I want to take a look back at where this project first began. Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Stephanie Steffen, and I write fantasy that's weird, whimsical, and darkly delicious. All right, so let's hop into our time machine. So the year is 2023, and for the last several months, I've been toiling away at a novel. Although I love the story, it's just not coming together. And after a few tedious drafts, that initial flame of passion is starting to gutter. One of the things I find most challenging about novels is the sheer volume of story you have to keep in your head while writing. A higher page count means more space to explore characters, plot, and all those glittering threads that link ideas together. The only downside? Well, that is a lot of information. Even with a detailed outline, it can feel a bit like trying to catch the ocean in a thimble. At that time, I felt defeated. I needed a break, badly. Despite multiple attempts, I had to face the possible truth that perhaps I still wasn't ready to tackle a novel yet. So I tucked my manuscript away and began brainstorming possible ideas for a new project. In the past, I'd written several short stories and found a little bit of success publishing them in a few literary magazines. Short stories and flash fiction were in my comfort zone. They're, well, short, which means I could still craft rich narratives without having to navigate as many plot points or characters as one might have to in a novel. Plus, I loved the challenge of trying to tell a satisfying story in 10,000, 1,000, even 100 words. So it was settled then. My next project would be a short story collection, but there was still one crucial thing that I was missing: a unifying theme. Short story collections are often built around something that ties all of the pieces together. That unifying element can be anything: a question, a motif, a setting, an emotion, literally anything you can dream up. I reviewed some of my old work and found 3 things that kept appearing time and time again: food, fairy tales, and magic. An interest in fairy tales and magic has been hardwired into me since childhood. I was constantly engaged in games of make-believe in which I was a fairy princess protecting the kingdom from great evil. And as far as food goes, I love everything about it. Eating it, reading about it, cooking, baking, describing food, sharing food with others. I knew these were subjects I could write about infinitely, without getting bored. Which was good, because I was going to have to come up with a lot of stories. Right away, I set to work, developing a list of food and ideas I wanted to explore. Meanwhile, there were some challenges in my personal life. My grandfather's cancer had returned, and my grandmother's dementia was starting to get worse. Slowly, I was stepping out of my role as a granddaughter and into the role of a caregiver. I've always been extremely close with my grandparents. I've always thought of them as more like a second set of parents. One of the things I loved most about our relationship were the stories they shared with me about what it was like to grow up in a small, rural town during the 1930s and 1940s. While listening to their stories one day, something occurred to me. The town they grew up in was probably nothing like I imagined. Think about it like this. There's reality, life the way it was at the time. Then there was my grandparents' version, imperfect and colored by memory and the passage of time. And then there was my version, even further removed, cobbled together using the tools of my own life experiences. To think that these familiar stories, at least the way they existed in my head, were sort of fantasies within themselves, fairy tale versions of real life. How weird. How interesting. I had been toying with the idea of setting all of the stories in a single fantasy world. Why not make it the one I had conjured for my grandparents? An imaginary yesterday, a storybook setting seasoned with my own peculiar blend of magic. I puzzled the world together. The technology, superstitions, towns, magic, pop culture, fashion, and guiding beliefs. As the world grew, it took on a life of its own, a place of opposites, filled with both shadows and sunshine, bitter but sweet, with wild magic and the cozy comforts of home. And, of course, food. Lots and lots of food. As I wrote, the world of the stirring season also became a place I could go after long caregiving days, when my heart felt its heaviest. It was a way to connect with my grandparents, even as it felt like they were fading away. Soon, the characters grew past the pages of their own stories and into the pages of others, overlapping in ways that surprised even me. I nurtured the connections between the stories, adding Easter eggs and callbacks so that each fairy tale could stand on its own, but together they'd weave a larger narrative, one about grief, love, memory, nostalgia, tradition, and loss. I learned so much about the craft of writing while working on this book. I've strengthened my skills, and now I think I might actually be able to tackle a novel. When you read The Stirring Season, I hope you feel like you've stumbled upon something magical. An old book found in the attic, dusty but golden. A feast of fairy tales told by firelight that combine darkness with delight. Full of thorns, and yet strangely cozy. A little slice of something that isn't, that brings comfort to what is. Publication for The Stirring Season, a novel in stories, is set for spring 2026. Over the next few months, I'll be sharing more about the book, the stories, and the art. If you want to celebrate with me on release day, then sign up for my newsletter using the link in the description box. And to learn more about the world of The Stirring Season, check out my Substack article linked below. Until next time!